So you were mixed up about Popoval being before or after Dundaga, and you right. So the way it was Kaiserwald and then Popoval.
Then Dundaga. Yeah, I got mixed up because.
Okay, so what did you not tell us about Popoval?
Well, the reason why I remembered about Popoval was because when I first came there, my job and a few other people were in charge of planting tomatoes and you know all kind of vegetables in a garden hothouse, and that's what brought me back to Popoval, because that was the first job we had, and then we did other after that. This was in the summertime, and it was hot, you know, and then they put us into hard labor afterwards. But that
so
was
you
the first
enjoyed that job?
I enjoyed that job, yeah. That's what I remember. It was Popoval, not Dundaga. Dundaga was a very short time, but for some reason I kind of misplaced it.
That's okay. So those were your pleasant memories.
Those are pleasant memories of that camp.
And the camp, that's the camp where you did the artwork.
That's the camp I did artwork. That's where I did the little miniature.
The miniature.
Yeah.
Did you ever do any more artwork in any other camp?
Yeah. Then from there, from Buchenwald, in Buchenwald I didn't do any artwork at all, because there was so chaotic afterwards, you know, after the bombing. Yeah. The camp that I was after Buchenwald I was in was called Reimsdorf, and that was near Leipzig. Now there we would go every day from that camp, right away, work in a factory where they were making synthetic gasoline, the Germans. This was in 44, close to 45 actually, making synthetic gasoline. And we would work there, building and carrying things, and then the Allied forces would bomb the place. Now before they bombed it, you had the siren. The Germans had a way of distracting them, not to camouflage the place by not knowing. I mean, those days I guess they didn't have any radar or whatever. You know, maybe they didn't have the exact the information where the place was. They would put pots on the street, on the outside, smoke pots, and we smoke up the place. It was all smoke all around, and the bombs, when they threw the bombs, they would come into the factory, but also outside of the factory. They were all around, you know, because they couldn't pinpoint it. They knew, I don't know how it worked anyway, but everybody would run out when there was the siren, you know, 10 minutes later or whatever, the bombs would start coming down. They knew it beforehand, and they were coming, so everybody from the factory, the Germans who worked there, it was a big factory, they would run outside of the factory, and we would hide there, you know. I mean, we didn't expect bombs there, you know, but they did come down, and some people were killed from the camp. Some were buried. One of them was buried by a bomb coming down on a hill, exploding, and the hill would come down on us. So some of them were buried all the way up, some of them were buried to the neck, you know, and it was a very dangerous situation. So then when the bombs were, they finished bombing, and then next day we would go back there and had to build it up again. The place was a mess. I mean, you know, and the way we noticed it every time they bombed is when the first train load of gasoline would come out, and they must have had fantastic reconnaissance, or somebody, maybe a spy there or whatever, that would tell them that here's this first one went out, they would bomb it again. But we would go there and build it up again.
So hats off to American intelligence.
I don't know if they're American or English or French. I don't know who they were, but we don't know. We couldn't see the bombers. You see, we could hear them, but we couldn't see them because of the smoke. They were high up anyway. They would fly high up because they were shooting at them. You know.
So this was in Leisdorf.
Reimsdorf.
Leimsdorf.
Yeah. No, Reimsdorf.
With an R.
Reimsdorf. Yeah, Reimsdorf, near Leipzig. And then we would walk. We would not drive. Every day we would go from the camp to the factory, which was a long walk. And during the time, and then, towards the end, they bombed the camp, our camp, where we were in. Because, see, the Germans would build the camps right near a railway station. A railway right next to it so they can escape quickly. And sometimes they couldn't tell probably whether the Germans or you know, if we were in the barracks, nobody could tell what was inside. So one day, bombs were coming down, and there were time bombs, big bombs, huge bombs, like big, and they would get stuck into the ground, and then they would explode. 5-10 minutes later, you know. So you imagine the panic. A lot of people got killed there too. And then the second time when they bombed, and they machine gun, there were little smaller airplanes coming down, machine gunning, everybody was running. It was at night. We tried to escape from the camp, and it was not. There were gates, you know. I mean, but it wasn't electrified, so we ran out of the gates, running up the hill. And while we were running, they would machine gun us. You know, I mean, that was a terrible situation there. A lot of people got killed.
Who was machine gunning you?
Well, I mean, we don't know who it was. You know, it was the Germans, or I mean,
From the airplanes.
from the Americans or the English. I mean, you know, they were so fast. You know, but the bombs were. We don't know who threw the bombs. Yeah, but it was closer at that time. It was, I think, closer to the. This was near Leipzig, so could have been the Russians, I don't know. Never found out. So that was the last camp. And then from there we wound up in Theresienstadt.
How did you get there?
In Theresienstadt we were on a train. On a train, and it was like a train for cattle, you know. And you saw the, I mean, when you see the movie that Spielberg made, with a train where he he waters them down into the small holes. I was in that train. I'm not in that particular train, but I was in that type of a train. But we didn't get any water, naturally. Now they put us in the trains like cattle, and we were going to Stutthof, to Theresienstadt.
So what do you mean they watered the train?
No. In the movie, Spielberg's movie, the actor, what's his name? You know, Schindler. Had him put water in the train.
Help the people.
Help people from being to get a little water, a little wet, you know, water in the mouth or
Because it was
train.
so
Yeah.
hot.
Well, I was in a train. We were on the trains for 4 days without water, without food. People died standing up. I mean, collapsed, and there was no water there. And that's how we went to. That's on the way to Theresienstadt. Now, then they started bombing the train also. Again, I don't know who it was. Very, very fast airplanes. I mean, those little fighter planes, throwing machine gunning, and other bombers were bombing it. And we finally got out of the train, and one man we knew in the camp, who was a guard. We all tried to escape into the woods. And once we stopped, you know, because the train stopped. And he was chasing after us, and he was shooting, but in the air. And he was trying to escape himself, which he did. We let him escape. because
You
he was.
let him escape.
Well, we. I mean, I wasn't. I mean, I heard the shots. I didn't see him, but we found out later on that he ran, pretending he was chasing after us, and then shoot. But he wasn't shooting at us, so we let him go. But he did it because of the other Germans who wouldn't go after him, you know. He was trying to escape. So I guess a few of them escaped during the time. And then we wound up in Theresienstadt, finally. But there are a lot of killed people there. In the train, there were people from the bombs.
When was that exactly?
This was in 1945, towards the end of the war.
In spring.
Towards the end of the war, yeah, it was in spring. Because in Theresienstadt we were only a couple of weeks or so, or less than a couple of weeks. There was a man that was supposed to bomb the Theresienstadt, a gas bomb it, gas the whole place, and they let him go, because he managed to save his life. He managed to save his neck, you know, by not doing it. But when we came
Tell
there,
me about that.
when we came to Theresienstadt, there was a typhoid epidemic, and I was one of the guys that was helping them delouse them and clean them, and you know, and I don't know how I didn't get it. But
you were delousing and cleaning
in the showers, typhoid people, and I didn't get it. I didn't catch it, and so we were there a very short time. And then the Russians came and liberated us.
Do you remember those moments?
Remember very well.
Describe them for us.
Well, I mean, you can imagine how happy we were, you know. I mean, we didn't know they were going to gas us. We didn't know the gas. If one more day, we would have not been there. The whole place would have been eliminated. But we didn't know that.
But they wanted to gas you because of typhoid or to kill all the Jews?
No, to kill all the Jews. He was supposed to have planned to kill all the Jews before the Russians came in. Before they took over, but he saved himself his neck by not doing it.
The German?
The one German. I don't know who he was, I don't know his name, but you know, I was told afterwards that that was the case.
So then the Russians did
The Russian came in, and the Russians came in, yeah. Afterwards, they liberated us. So that's another story afterwards. You know, when they're trying to take me to put us on a train, on a truck, and ship us back to Latvia, to where we came from. There were 2 Lithuanians and 3 Latvians. Yeah, 5 of us. And well, we escaped from the Russians and wound up in the American zone. That's another story altogether.
Is that right?
Yeah. You
escaped from that truck?
Yeah. Well, we didn't escape from a truck. We were led off the truck into a bombed out house somewhere in Czechoslovakia. After traveling from Theresienstadt, they took us and we went for quite a while, and then they let us off and they were going to steal horses and sell it on the black market. I don't know what they were doing. But then they came back again, and when they came back, meanwhile, they gave us some things, you know, like clothes, a few things, and we had little packages. And the one Russian took 2 of us out of the house, and when they came back, and he saw we have a package, and he took the package away into the woods. Nobody could see. With at gunpoint, and then that's when we decided we're not going to go back, so we escaped.
Well, so the Russians, what was the Russians' motive for sending you back to Riga?
Well, because we were from Latvia. You see, everybody in Latvia was a Russian citizen. Okay? Everybody was a Russian citizen in Latvia. Automatically, when the Russians came in, everybody became a Russian citizen. So Latvians, when you said you're from Riga, Latvia, and you were 21 years old, you know, you were Russian citizens. They knew that, you know.
So they wanted to send you back.
They wanted to send me back to Latvia, but they also were talking about being in the army. You know, it was army time. You know.
Oh, so you were really worried about going.
So we weren't going to go. I'm not going to go to army. The other friends of mine weren't going to go to army. We knew our parents were killed. I didn't know my brother went back there or not. Nobody knew. See, a group of us, a smaller group. Some of them went back to Latvia, and some of them didn't. You know, and I was one of
So
them.
what kind of physical shape were you in at the end of the war?
Let's see. Most people were probably 110 pounds. Maybe I was 115 pounds. You know, I was in better shape because I was a little bit more food. Occasionally, I would get a lot of sandwiches, but not much better shape. I mean, we were walking skeletons. You know.
I have heard a lot about the artwork that was done in Theresienstadt.
Yeah, I know. I've heard about it too.
Did you do any artwork
Well,
there?
I wasn't long enough not to do anything. I said we were a very short time there. Maybe I don't remember. Was it a week or 2 weeks? Very short time.
Did you
'Cause it
ever
was-
do any artwork for anyone after the first place?
After what?
After the
what?
first place where you were in
In Popoval?
Popovan.
Yeah. Well,
Where else?
well in Rijmsdorf I did a lot of artwork. Rijmsdorf.
This was the guy that brought you the charcoal?
No.
No.
The guy who bought the charcoal was in Popoval.
Popovan.
Well, there I got charcoal over there too. You know, I had already. By that time, I already had charcoals accumulated, a couple, 3 or 4 pencils and paper and the whole thing.
On you.
Yeah,
You
but
had it.
yeah, and they in Leipzig is another place where they could get it. You see, it was a big city. So when I was running out of charcoal, somebody would go there in that area, and they would get. Well, it happened to be in that area, they would get it for me. You know.
So how often did you?
Well, not that
do
often, but
portraits?
often enough to get more food than other people get.
Did it ever save your life?
The food, you mean?
No, the artwork. Did
Well, I think that's what saved my life, probably by doing it, by just being in the camps and managed to get a little more food, and also getting out of hard labor. Occasionally, when they would put me into a room and keep me there for a couple of days, you know, that's also, and also probably at times when they wanted to have a picture done. I couldn't do it outside, you know, I had to do it somewhere in a room because the commandant would come down, you know.
They would pose for you, actually.
They would pose for me, sometimes they would give me a photograph, hand over a photograph to me, and I would do it in the barrack at night. With a carbide lamp, you know, carbide, you know what that is? Carbide, it's some kind of fluid that's like gasoline, but it's, you know, it's called carbide, and it lights up, you know, and I would sit there sometimes all night and draw, you know, and hand it to the next day or whatever. But I think that was saved my life. Because I mean, there were some times where people were so weak they couldn't walk, you know, I mean, they couldn't stand straight, you know, I mean, the skeleton, you've seen the photographs, I mean, movies of taken in Buchenwald and so on. Well, that's what most people looked like, you know.
Did you ever get ill?
Now, excuse me, interrupting. There also were people that were tailors and shoemakers. They also would get fed much better because they were indoors. They would sew, you know, and these are the kind of people that had more of a chance to survival than a guy was digging ditches, you know.
Did you ever get very ill?
Oh, I got ill many times, sure. Everybody
What
got
kinds
ill.
of illnesses?
Well, bad colds, you know, sinus infections and things like that. And they had a doctor, a Jewish, at one of the camps there was a Jewish doctor there who would take care of us occasionally, you know, when he had a chance. And he was known as the Jewish doctor in the camp, you know. In Popoval they had a doctor. In Buchenwald there was a doctor. And but the people were sick all the time. You know, they were sick from hunger. They were sick from mostly hunger, I would say, but also bad colds. You know, they were coughing all the time. They had pneumonia. Some of them. You know, it was.
Did you have any other close relationships other than the young woman in camp?
Yeah, there was one young man in the camp who was from Germany, from Cologne, and we became very good friends. He was in a different barrack than I was, and he was one of the few that were killed by the bomb. I mean, it tore them apart. Pieces were flying, and I was very, very upset about that. I mean, I had a hell of a time getting over it, watching him getting killed. I mean, the pieces, flesh flying, parts of the body. I mean, you know, it was a very strong bomb. I was told later on there were 500-pound bombs. There were time bombs, and that was the only friend I really had. I mean, I had acquaintances, but he was a very good. We were always cohabitating, you know, talking to each other, and he didn't speak Yiddish. He spoke only German. I spoke German pretty well, you know, being in the camps for that many years. And he was a close friend, I would say. Yeah, that was it.
Did you find anything helpful? Any thoughts helpful? Did you believe in God?
Well, I'll tell you what happened. I lost that in the camp because when I saw the religious people coming in to the camp, number one, they couldn't eat the food because they were kosher. You know, they were having pears and the beards, and the first thing they didn't last very long. Either they were killed or they would starve to death because they wouldn't eat. You know. And that we would ask ourselves the question, where is God? You know, and these people never did anything wrong, you know, and they died, and we were alive. You know, it was quite a problem, you know, for us to even think about God at that time. For some of us, now a lot of people, many people in the camps that came out of the camps became very religious because they felt that God saved them, you know. With me, didn't happen that way, but. After the camp, I went to the shul. Oh, in Riga, by the way, I forgot to tell you one thing, which was very important. And when the Germans came in, they burned the synagogue with the people inside. And this was right in the beginning. They burned the synagogue where my father, you know, my mother, the whole family used to go, myself also. And the shamas and the rabbi, they pushed them back in there. The ones that tried to escape, they closed the doors and they pushed them in and they burned. That was a bad.
You mean
the
rabbi and the shamas were with them?
And a lot of people were inside the synagogue. And my father was
the Germans pushed them in.
Yeah, and maybe the Latvians too, I don't know, the Latvians were involved. The Latvians were involved in a lot of killing the people, the Jews. But the thing is, what bothered me most was that the fact that the shamas was a very good friend of my father. You know, my parents. My father was dead by that time because they took him. They killed my father and my uncle. But I remember him very well because he used to come. They used to be very close together, and that really was. I didn't know who the other people were. You know, of course, the whole thing bothered me naturally. Well, I wasn't there. I could see from a distance. The synagogue was very close. The fire going up, and then we started. You know, they burned everybody inside.
Do you remember the names of the shamas or the?
Don't remember the names. But,
so you didn't want to go back. You knew there was no one left.
I didn't want to go back because I knew I didn't want to go back to Latvia. I didn't want to see the Latvians. I never went back to Latvia. I never went to see my brother. I talked to him on the phone. We wrote each other. I never wanted to go. And we were, Suzanne and I were in London, my ex-wife. We were going to go to Latvia, and I was very anxious to go and see him. And I was talking to the Jewish organization there. They said, don't go. You were a Russian citizen at one time. You escaped the army. They'll get you. I mean, no matter somebody can say to them, hey, here's a Latvian, actually, it's another long story which I won't go into now, because I escaped another time from the Russians. When I went to Vienna, I received a scholarship at the Vienna Academy by doing a portrait of a man who was a judge in the American Army in Salzburg, and the woman who was his friend was in the UNRWA. She was the head of the camp, displaced person camp. She was from Poland, a Polish woman. Pianczykowska was her name, and still is her name. She's in Los Angeles, by the way. She lives here, in the Valley. And I saw her just about a year ago. And her husband, she married him. They got married eventually. He went to Vienna with a drawing of him, which he liked a lot, and I think he may have had another drawing there. And they gave me a scholarship as a result of the two drawings. Oh, she said one, but I think he had maybe more than one. So anyway, in order to get to Vienna, I had to go through from Salzburg to Vienna. I had to go to the Russian zone. The Russians took me off the train by looking at my it wasn't a passport, it was a booklet with 12 stamps, and it was supposed to be 13. And they couldn't read German, so in the end you could see Riga, Latvia, born in Riga, Latvia, and there was one stamp was missing, which nobody told me I needed it. Took me off the train, and they thought I was a Russian, escaped from the Russian army, a deserter, you know, the guy that runs away from the army. So that's a long story from there. How I managed to get away from it. I escaped from them, you know, being in the camps all these years, you know, you learn how to hide, escape, you know, things like that. So I managed to do that, and I wound up in Vienna after that. Now in Vienna, in the train, being in the train, a friend. Well, it was a friend of mine, but actually he was an acquaintance more than a friend, but I knew him very well in the camp. And I remember his name very well. I like to find him as a matter of fact. His name is Aron Simkin, S-I-M-K-I-N. He went from Vienna, from Salzburg, he went to Brussels. And we were on the same train. And when the Russian tried to take me off the train, I told them right away, and I was supposed to go to Vienna and stay in a hospital there. It was a hospital for displaced persons, you know. And he went to, he wasn't going to Vienna, he was going directly to Brussels. I don't know where he would stop. And he said to me, go to my brother. My brother is in the English army, and he's outside of Vienna, and he has a little room that he rents for once a week on Saturdays and Sundays. He takes his girlfriend there, and then he goes back to his army, and he'll let you stay there, because I didn't want, you know, I didn't know what to. But meanwhile, he took my luggage, that little luggage that I had, he took it with him, and he left it at the hospital where I went to stay for like 4 days until I found his brother. And that's how it happened, you know. But there's a long story between Salzburg and Vienna, which will take another hour to talk about.
How did you escape? How did you escape? Did you jump over a wall?
Somebody wants to make a movie about my escape from Salzburg to Vienna after the war. He said to me, he was a producer, he said to me, and I haven't gone with him yet because I'm trying to check him out and see if he's legitimate, this guy. He was mainly interested in after the war because he said, you know, everybody knows about the camps. People have been in the camps, movies made about it. Yeah. And so he wants to write about it, about the escape. How I escaped from.
So you'd rather hold
So
that.
I'll hold it for a little while, yeah.
Good, okay.
Because otherwise, there won't be a movie. There won't be.
There'll be fighting.
There'll be fighting over this. That's a very and the time in Vienna, the 4 years in Vienna is another. And this is part of the movie. I mean, as I said, I haven't taken him yet. But I want to be told that because that's a very human interest story of escaping from the getting away from the camp and then winding up in another 4 years of starvation in Vienna because there was no food there. You know, I was having one meal a day. Lunch. That's it?
No, no.
No? More? What was it? Not more? Nothing more? I'm in Los Angeles now.
We'll take a little time to discuss, to take you from the art school to today. Let's take a little time to do
See,
that.
then I have to tell you the whole story.